I'm Jacob Hartley, one of the managing editors at the Manc Union. I'm with Katie, the Humanities Officer at the Students' Union this year. Katie, can you explain briefly what that means to be the Humanities Officer?
Yeah, of course. So Humanities Officer is basically a part of the 8 exec who lead the Students' Union. And the Humanities Officer more specifically is someone who represents the academic interests of humanities students. So that can be anything from assessment and feedback, or it could be stuff to do with the student experience that humanities students in particular are facing. For example, timetable clashes are a big one for humanities students. Or we can work with the exec team on stuff like cost of living, which is really important.
So can you, from that, tell us what have you been doing this year in your project?
Yeah. So assessment and feedback is one that I've been working on very closely with the other faculty officers. And that is something which, through the National Student Survey, through Build Your MCR, which is a SU report research that we did, it's been shown that assessment and feedback is one of the biggest issues that students face, along with student voice, which is obviously a huge one, because student voice just means that students don't feel like they're being listened to. So one of the things we've been working on is closing the feedback loop, so making sure that students feel like they've been heard, their feedback's been taken on board, and that it's been carried out. So that's something we've been encouraging the university to do more and more of. So assessment and feedback, I might get into that a bit more later. But there's decolonising the curriculum, which has been like it's turned out to be quite a big piece of work this year. So we're writing a decolonisation strategy for the Students' Union so that we can continue work, because often officers pick it up and then it drops off and then it picks back up again. And we want it to be we know that students care about it through Union Assembly, so we want it to kind of carry on. Yeah.
So can you start with the work you're doing on marking assessment? More specifically, when there are problems with feedback, what specifically are the problems you identified before you kind of set out to fix them?
Yeah, of course. So the biggest thing is timeliness. People often feel like, I know I did when I was studying, they feel like they get told that they're going to get feedback in 15 working days, which is the policy that the university have in place, and then it can end up being 2 months before they've received their feedback. And obviously we've had issues with the marking and assessment boycott as well, which has only made these issues worse, of course, because students, it's been delayed more and more for reasons obviously that the UCU strike and things like that. Which is really important work, but it's made students feel a lot more emotional about it, which is, yeah.
One of the other things you bring up on your section of the website is something about mitigating circumstances. You write that you want the system to review mitigating circumstances more empathetically. And that's maybe slightly vague. What do you mean exactly by that?
Yeah, so back when I was writing that, I had heard this story that a student told me, and it basically was the fact that something really traumatic had happened in her life, and then she told the university about it, and they were basically like, no, it's too late, we can't give you mitigating circumstances for this reason. And it was a reason that I think anyone would be able to objectively say was definitely something that would make you want to quit your studies and things like that. So I think when I heard that, I knew that that was something I wanted to get in there, but being vague in the sense, I was way too vague. But what I really wanted to get across is that, for example, you can't prove a panic attack, and I always say that because that's something where you can't say, well, I had a panic attack the other day, and then they go, where's the evidence? And I think that's what's difficult. Because students, things can happen, you can't predict things that are going to happen, and then it's really traumatic for students. So one of the things that I've been working on that the university was already doing, but was in the process and we've just been inputting into that policy, is automated mitigating circumstances. So they're trying to do it so that, I know that a few schools already do it, but they're trying to make it consistent across, particularly in humanities, so that students get an automatic extension that they don't need evidence for.
And you don't think there's a risk that people might take advantage of the system with automated mitigating circumstances?
I think there's always that risk, but the way I think of it, especially in humanities, is that with essay writing subjects, which the majority are, I think that it's not so much about memory recall anymore. It's not so much about being able to answer something that's right or wrong. It's more about thinking more deeply about it and thinking more subjectively from different perspectives, which I think takes longer, and I think that there's nothing wrong with that. For example, like the fact that we have most things are online assessments that you can do from anywhere from 48 hours to 7 days that can be like an exam. I know all my exams were 7 days long. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because things like I studied sociology, I think they shouldn't have to be timed, because they're things that take a lot of thought and are really, really important to think about deeply, rather than, for example, in medicine where you might have a multiple choice question where there's a right and wrong answer, if that makes sense.
Great. I'd like to move on to decolonising the curriculum. It's a bit of a buzzword, decolonising the curriculum, and you talk about like writing a module about decolonising the curriculum. Can you explain what that's going to look like?
Yeah, of course. So that kind of started off as something, because decolonising the curriculum actually wasn't on my original idea statement, so that wasn't what I was selected on. But when I got into the role, I saw that it had been passed through Union Assembly, and it was already something as a sociology student that I really cared about, because it's something that I'd learned about quite a lot in my first and second year. So I suppose when I got into the role, I was like, yeah, I definitely want to work on this. So I started speaking to students about it. And one of the key things is that students from all across the university, not only humanities, are really, really keen to learn more, because it's not just something that is like in the curriculum for humanities students. There's also words that are used in, I always use the acronyms, but FBMH and FSC, Science and Engineering and Biology, Medicine and Health, which use words that we wouldn't use now because it's from our colonial history. So that's kind of where it came from, and then myself and Aisha, the Wellbeing and Liberation Officer, we started working with the Flexible Learning Programme, who are really keen to get kind of modules that students can pick up. Now, the only issue with that is that it is voluntary, so it means that it's not something that students will have to learn about. So we're going to try and make it so that it's part of an eventual USIL module. So this is going to be a smaller part of hopefully a bigger, longer term project.
On that though, if it's not compulsory, I mean, aren't you running the risk that you're going to get the people who are interested in it and already know about it doing it, and the people who don't know anything about it and who they could really benefit from it just being, oh, that's not for me, I don't care about that.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you really going to achieve if it's not compulsory?
No, you're completely right. I think there's a big issue here with when we talk about curriculum and what should be in the curriculum. I think that it's really not an open door in these sorts of institutions. For example, environmental sustainability, a lot of people believe that that should be built into the curriculum from the moment that programmes are approved. I believe that, and I believe the same with decolonisation. I think that it shouldn't be Eurocentric, and it is. So I think that there's a wider issue here, and this is something that if I had more time in this role I would love to work on, is to get right from the moment that someone approves a programme, that is already included, because in institutions like this it's really hard to break down those barriers and say, because I initially wanted it to be a compulsory Blackboard module, like the consent module, which is recently come out, but it was said that that's not something that that's not a compulsory thing that they can justify putting on there.
But even beyond that, I mean, if we talk about decolonising the curriculum as a whole, do you think that the university, I mean, you're kind of letting the university say, well, we've run this module, and they're going to look at that and go, yes, we've done that, but you're not thinking about the curriculum as a whole, you're kind of detracting from that even in some ways.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I think that it's hard striking the balance between, because one of the things that we really don't want to happen is for this to become like a tokenistic thing, where it's like, that thing's there, we've done it, we've decolonised the curriculum. That's not the way it is at all. It's a really, really hard thing to break down. But I think that student groups such as Diversified Politics Now, the Butterfly Effect, Resist Rape Culture, all of their work on decolonisation, I think that all needs to feed in together, which I think is what we're trying to do with the decolonisation strategy.
So you're bringing together existing stuff. Really,
so alongside the work that's going on, but I do absolutely take the point that it can feel quite that's a standalone,
Yeah.
when really it needs to be a wider project across the whole university, which is, as I said, if I had more time, I would absolutely and it is something that I'm hoping to work on, is to try and work out what are the things that is discussed right at the moment that someone starts creating a programme.
Yeah, of course.
And yeah.
I mean, talking of having more time, do you think you're going to run again for a second term?
That's not the plan. I think 2 years is a long time to take out of study because I'm between second and third year.
Let's move on to student reps. Can you briefly outline the kind of gaps you saw with the student rep programme?
Yeah, 100%. So I was a student rep in second year for sociology, so just a course rep, which I really loved doing. But there was gaps in the sense that in certain situations it felt like there wasn't much guidance on what to do. But there's been so many things put in place this year by the Students' Union, and there's still a way to go, and we're still discussing that every day. But for example, school reps have lanyards now, which means they can be identified by other students, and there's been actually loads of students coming in this week because they've just arrived, the lanyards have this week, and there's been loads of students asking for them, so we know that they want to be recognised and they want to help. Then we've taken away elections this year, which means that any student can be a student rep. And obviously, there's never too much representation, so the more the better. So yes, that's really exciting. But I saw gaps, I suppose, in the profile of reps. I didn't know who my rep was when I was in first year, for example. So that was something I really wanted to make sure happens this year. And it is quite challenging because we have over 1,500 student reps now, so that's a lot of people to show to the rest of the student body. But I think that even just having an accessible place to have an email where they can go, who do I talk to when I want to discuss issues that I might not want to discuss with a programme director because it might be a bit kind of awkward. So yes, that was kind of the gap I saw.
Do you think, so you're talking about raising the profile of student reps as a whole. I've asked my housemates if they knew who their student reps were. None of them did, but also a couple of them didn't know what a student rep was. Do you think just saying these are the student reps and identifying them is going far enough?
No, I absolutely agree with that. I think that because I didn't know what a student rep was when I started, I was like, what on earth? Because I was never a student rep at school, I wasn't on the school council or anything, so I had no idea what that was. And then I got into the role. I saw the role and I was speaking to the other student rep on my course, and he was telling me what it was like, and I was like, that sounds like something I could be into. It's a good thing to put in your CV, things like that. Still didn't really know what it was when I was doing it. To be honest, and I think that that's so important, and we've got a lot of rep training going on at the moment. At the start of the year we do rep training, which is good for showing the student reps what is expected of them or what they can do with their role. But I think there's definitely more that can be done on communicating that out to the student body. And I think maybe there's something we might be able to do with the website. There's something that I think lecturers can do in making sure that student reps, I think there's a responsibility there for people need to be evaluating a course all the way through, because it can, different problems can pop up. So I hope that's helpful.
You sort of brought this up now, and you mentioned your website there's a kind of problem with student communications, and you've also brought up employability, it's good for your CV, that kind of thing. You mentioned on the website there was a report on feedback from a forum you did. What's that going to say? What were the results of that?
Yeah. Is this the faculty forum?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was a faculty forum that myself and the Humanities coordinator, who's a permanent staff member in the Students' Union. So we basically came up with some key topics that we'd seen through the NSS and we'd seen through different student surveys and things that were on my idea statement as well, that we wanted to find out more about, things that we knew that were affecting students. So assessment and feedback, we know that we've got enough data to back up that that's a problem for students. So we didn't bother with that this year. just because we've got so much data on that we need to focus on other things now. So employability for humanities students has always been something that like I've wanted to really help with, because humanities is such like a wide range of subjects. There's anything from architecture to sociology to law. It's just so wide that I think there's so many different careers that you can get out of that. Like sociology, for example, I don't even know where to begin when I graduate, like at all. So I would really like more support for students in that. So that was one of them. And then we looked at mental health support as well. So we know that mental health, particularly with the cost of living crisis, is really bad amongst the student population at the moment, and the wider society as well. So we knew that we wanted to work out how students can get the best access to make it more accessible through better communication. So that was something else we asked. And we also asked about student communications on a wider level, which was really, really important, because often students really don't know what's going on. Even with the lead MCR elections, for example, we want as many students to know about that as possible. So that's why there's loads of stuff going on the Instagram, there's loads of stuff on the website, because we want that to get that word out. But it's really hard to kind of get every student in the student population, because we want everyone to hear about it, we want everyone to have equal access to things like that, but it is really hard. So we wanted to know more about that and how we can help students.
Right. Thank you. So one last thing, which a few people brought up when we were brainstorming questions. One of the things you did put on your manifesto was something about banning 9 a.m s.
Yes.
How's that going?
Wow. Okay. So that was initially one of the things that I was probably most passionate about, because there was so many instances. I never had a 9 a.m. So like I was so lucky, never had a 9 a.m. I bet I'm going to get into my final year and I'll just have 9 a.m. So that it's very possible that will happen. But all my housemates, anyone that I knew who had had a 9 a.m. said that they walked in, no one there. And I just thought, what is the point? What is the point? So this was one of the first things I brought up when I got into the role. So I met with, there's something called the Flexible Learning Programme, which we're working on the decolonisation module with. And I instantly wanted to be a part of that, because I really like the idea of making learning as flexible as possible, especially because students pay so much. They should be able to learn, they should be able to learn in any way they want. So that was my initial thought, and I brought it up. I had a few meetings with people from around the flexible learning arena, and basically it came to a head that timetable clashes are too much of a problem. So if we were so I've got a really fun fact actually that I might throw in here. Apparently this is someone called Steve Pettifer who has figured this out. If you wrote every single combination of timetabling from every student in Manchester in font size 12 on the engineering building, it wouldn't fit. So that's how many different combinations there are of student timetabling. So if we were to take out 9 a.m s, because a lot of academic staff I know would be on board with that as well, but they have basically said that it would mean that we'd have to finish later.
Right.
So this is something that I'd want to explore more, because maybe if it's a case that students would rather finish later than start earlier, then that's definitely something that we can push for. So it's just that extra bit of research that I think I need to push.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But you've said basically you promised something, or promised to advocated for something that's become impossible. How do you think we can go about kind of stopping people who are applying for your role next year or applying for a different role next year, also promising something, they don't quite know what the role is, they get it and they go, oh, I can't do that? It's
a really good point, and that's something we were actually chatting about earlier today, because my idea statement, a lot of it is possible and hopefully will happen, and I really, really hope it does. But a lot of the time, I think you write something down that you have absolutely no idea about, because you think, I don't want to do 9 a.m, so why should we have to do it?
And it sounds good to people voting as well.
Yeah, of course it does, and that's what's difficult, because it feels like you just want to shake the university and say, why aren't you doing this? But then when you actually get into those meetings and they're saying, we wish we could do that, but for these reasons, this, and this we can't. So I think that the best way, I think is for students to have a better understanding of what we talk about in those rooms, and that's something that as an officer team we really want to work on, and we have been working on, is better communication with students. So more posting on Instagram, trying to get the websites updated up monthly and things like that. So we really want to make sure that students know what conversations happen in those rooms, so that if they are thinking of applying and there's something that has been discussed, then they can have access to that and think, okay, well someone's already tried that and it's not worked, maybe I can explore that further, or maybe I'll leave that where it is. But also we want students to know that they can come and talk to us anytime, and that like if there is someone who wants to get rid of 9AMs, that they can come and talk to me anytime, and I can perhaps bring them along to a meeting where we can try and work on that together. So yeah, I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, that's great. That's everything from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was great.
Thanks.